Hi, thank you for watching the Microsoft Partner Technology Specialist video series. In today's video, we're going to look at using System Center Configuration Manager 2012 to manage endpoint protection deployments and updates. System Center Endpoint Protection provides powerful malware, spyware, and rootkit detection and remediation, vulnerability assessments, and integrated Windows firewall management. Using System Center 2012 Configuration Manager, you can also have a central location to download important updates and monitor client settings. You can also use this to send email notifications, use the in-console monitoring, or view reports to keep your administrators informed when new malware is detected and to make sure that every client has the appropriate definitions. In order to enable System Center Endpoint Protection 2012, the first thing we need to do is set up sccm as our endpoint protection point. To do that, we're simply going to come over to Servers and Site System Roles, select our Configuration Manager server, right-click to add a site system role, make sure our settings are correct here, click Next. Now we're going to choose the Endpoint Protection role. Accept the terms of the license agreement, and then specify whether we want to enroll in Microsoft Active Protection Service. If we choose Basic Membership, Microsoft is going to collect basic information about new malware and viruses that are detected in your environment and send that information back to Microsoft to generate new virus definition updates. If we want to choose Advanced Membership, we'll collect more information and provide more specific details to Microsoft when we come up with the new updates. Click on Next. Verify our settings are correct, and then wait for that site system role to install. Alright, now that our site system role has been installed, close that out. Once our System Center Endpoint Protection point has been set up, you can look in the system tray icon and see that our computer is at risk. This is normal behavior as we don't have any virus definitions updated into endpoint protection just yet. Next thing we can do is set up alerts for our clients. Click on Sites, click on our current site, and configure site components. We can set up email notification if we have an SMTP server that we can use in our environment. Simply click on the Enable Notifications, enter in the SMTP server that we want to use, and the sender address. You can test that SMTP server connection with this button here. Currently there is no SMTP server available in the environment, so we're going to skip this step for now. The next thing we want to do is to set up a device collection so that we can create custom policies for each collection, as well as get reports and alerts for those collections. In order to create a device collection, we're in Assets and Compliance, and we're going to click on Device Collections, and then click Create a Device Collection. We're going to name this collection Windows 7 Clients, and we're going to limit the scope of this collection to all systems. This is fine in lab, but in the real world you may want to get more specific than all systems. Click on OK, click on Next, and now we're going to add a rule for this collection. We're going to do a query rule. There we go. And we're going to edit our query statement. And choose criteria. We're going to add a new criteria for this collection. So we're going to choose a simple value where our operating system, scroll down to operating system. There we go. This is our attribute class, and our attribute name is what we want to query. Click OK, and then we want to choose that operating system name is equal to a specific value. And here we can pull a list of values that we already have pre-populated. We're going to choose Windows 7 Enterprise for our criteria. Click OK. One more time. We need to give this query rule a name, so we're going to call this Windows 7 Query. Click OK. The incremental updates for this collection whenever we have new machines that join our domain and are discovered by sccm, we want to automatically enroll them into this collection. So we're going to click this checkbox here, click next, next again, and close. You'll see that Windows 7 client collection is updating, and in a minute or two, we'll have all of the machines that are running a Windows 7 Enterprise operating system as part of this collection. Now that sccm has found all of our Windows 7 clients, we have 2 machines, we can right-click, scroll down, click on Properties, wait for our Properties dialog box to open, click on Alerts, and we want to enroll this in our Endpoint Protection dashboard. So we're going to view that collection. Click on Add. We're going to check all of the options here so we get all of the alerts that we find in our dashboard. Click OK. All right, and OK once again. The next step in the process is to update our software update point to download the latest endpoint protection software and malware updates. To do that, let's go back to our administration, back to sites, select our primary site, and we're going to configure our site component. Click on software update point. In the dialog box, we're going to come over to products, and we're going to scroll down to our endpoint protection section. Here we want to get all of our endpoint protection updates. Endpoint protection 2010 is how it's still listed here. And click OK. Now that we've configured our update point to pull forefront definitions, let's come over to our software library. Come down to software updates, all software updates, right click on that and perform synchronization so we get the latest antivirus definitions. So synchronize software updates, and we're going to run the synchronization. We're going to give that synchronization a couple of minutes to complete before we start deploying those agents out to our clients. While we're waiting for our synchronization, we can actually view the process of this sync using the included CM trace application in sccm. To do that, we come in and open our logs. Our log is located C, Program Files, Microsoft Configuration Manager, Logs, and we're going to look at the W-Sync Manager. Click Open. If we scroll down to the bottom to get the latest status update, we are done synchronizing our WSUS server sccm 2012 in our domain. So we can close out of that. Now that we've finished synchronizing our updates, we're going to create an automatic deployment rule for these updates. Come over to automatic deployment rule. We're going to create a new rule, give it an appropriate title. Let's call it automatic deployment rule for endpoint protection. There we go. We're going to target a specific collection, and that is our Windows 7 clients. Click OK. And we're going to enable that deployment after this rule is run. And click on Next. On this screen, we're going to limit the level of detail that our clients see when we're doing this installation to minimal. This is just going to tell us if it was successful or unsuccessful. Click on Next. On this screen, we're going to select properties so we can filter out all of the updates that we've received. So let's check date released or revised. And then we need to select a value for that. We're going to choose last 1 day. We can choose something a little bit more granular or a little bit more lengthy, all the way past 28 days or even longer if we choose. But for our lab purposes, last 1 day is going to be fine. Click OK. We're also going to make sure that we filter out by product. So our product is going to be Forefront. And click OK. And we're going to click on Next. Since Forefront definitions are fairly important, we actually want to change the recurring schedule to synchronize every day. We change that down to 1, so we always have the freshest updates for our forefront clients. Click next. On this page, we want to set a specific time where these deployments are made. So we want to make sure that these are deployed within 2 hours of new definitions being updated. So click 2 hours. And we also want that to run as soon as possible for our lab. There you go. The next, we want to set the user experience. So our user notifications are not going to get any notifications at all. We want this to run pretty transparent to the user. Click on next. And we're going to generate an alert with any of the following are met. If our compliance falls below 90%, or if they're more than 7 days out of compliance, we're going to generate an alert for them. Here you go. Next is our download settings. If our clients are on a slower, unreliable network, what do we want to do? We still want them to be able to download these software updates and install them. So we are going to click next on that. Now we're going to create a new deployment, and we're going to name this one Endpoint Protection Definition Updates. The package source is going to be sccm 2012/sources/updates/endpoint. And click next. Add a distribution point. We're going to distribute this from our sccm server. Click next. We're going to download our software updates from the internet. Choose the language. English is the only one selected for now. Summary. Next. And then wait for that to complete. There you go. Once that's complete, we can close out of here. Once our automatic deployment rule has been created, let's right click and click Run Now. Click OK. And after a few minutes, we should see our software updates updated. Currently, these are all showing downloaded no, because we haven't, our automatic deployment rule hasn't run yet since the last sync. So let's give this a few minutes and see if those get downloaded now. All right, after a refresh, we see that our definition updates have been downloaded. This one is an older definition that doesn't meet our criteria, so it was not downloaded. Next, we're going to create custom client settings for endpoint protection. In our administration tab, we're going to come over to client settings, and we're going to create a custom client device setting. Click on that, give it an appropriate name, custom client device settings for endpoint protection. And we want to mark it as an endpoint protection settings. Click OK. All right, now let's edit the settings for our custom client settings. Click on Properties. Here we go, and Endpoint Protection. Here we go. We're going to manage the endpoint protection client. That is true. Leave these values at true. Any required restarts, we actually want those to restart if necessary. Here we go. And how long do we want to give our end users to postpone a restart? So I would say, at least give them to the end of the business day. So set that to 5-6 hours, or up to 8 if you'd like. Once those settings are set, we're going to click OK. Come over to this and deploy. Here we go, and we're going to choose a collection to deploy this out to. We're going to deploy this out to our Windows 7 clients. Click OK. And we're going to give that a few minutes to actually deploy those client settings out to our Windows 7 machines. All right, now that our custom client settings have been deployed, let's go back up to our Assets and Compliance, Endpoint Protection, and specify some custom anti-malware policies for these clients. I'm going to click here. You have the option of importing a preset set of policies based on a number of different configurations. So for your domain controller, DHCP server, a Hyper-V host IIS, there is one for our standard desktop. There you go. standard desktop, or for performance optimized or something for high security. But for the purposes of this lab, let's create our own custom definition so we can see some of the properties. So let's create an anti-malware policy. Let's name this one custom endpoint policy. There we go. And our scheduled scans. All right, since this is an antivirus setting, let's change our scan day to daily so we always have daily updates. All right, check for the latest definition updates before running a scan. Yes, let's do that. All right, and then randomize the start schedule. True, within 30 minutes of 2 a.m. Now that we have those settings set, let's click OK. Wait for those policies to populate. Click on Write. And now we're going to deploy those policies to our endpoint protection clients. Click on Deploy to our Windows 7 clients. And OK. And we see that our deployments has been updated to 1. Now, if I flip back over to my Windows 7 machine, you'll see that we have our endpoint protection client has been installed, and it hasn't run the sync schedule, so it hasn't actually downloaded the virus updates. But every day at 2 a.m., it's going to run that, it's going to check for new updates and download those updates if applicable. And that's it. We've now created a custom device setting and anti-malware policy using System Center 2012 and endpoint protection.